Hi everyone, I am Sarah West, and today I'm going to be talking about Jupiter in Scorpio, as that's coming up here in about 6 weeks. So let's see about sharing my screen for you to get started. All right, there we are. Everybody see that okay?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, perfect. All right, so Jupiter has been in Libra for some time, and it's going to be entering into Scorpio on October 11th. And we'll be there for about 13 months until November 9th of 2018. So with that, it's quite a big change going from Libra to Scorpio, so we're going to be seeing some change in folks who have that in their chart, but everybody has a Scorpio house, so we'll see how those themes expand this coming 13 months or so. So I took some time to kind of dig in and find the last cycles of Jupiter and Scorpio to kind of give, you know, if anyone wants to do some research and go play with, you know, current events during these periods of time, you can check that out. With the bottom one as our most recent coming transit. So you'll see in the coming examples kind of some background of events that from our volunteers and myself, or my volunteer and myself, from it being in our charts. So there's some dates, and you can come back and look at this as you wish. So in doing so, I wanted to just kind of see what was going on last time, and we had some very strong Scorpio themes and big news with what happened last time that Jupiter was in Scorpio in 2005 to 2006. And as you can see from these headlines that I pulled, definitely Scorpio themes. And it kind of gives a sense of the shift from the Libra, maybe being at the table in social justice and that kind of focus that Jupiter's been in kind of in the mainstream for us, and relationships and those themes, and going into deeper subject matter investigations and so forth. It also brings on you know, the threats of war, and what, you know, challenges representing that. So I thought it would be interesting to look at the chart, at least from the United States. There's a lot going on in the United States, but you can do this for the countries that you are in, and kind of take a look at what the chart looks like when Jupiter ingresses into Scorpio during that time, and what it looks like for your country. So this is just Washington, D.C., and I wanted to kind of get a peek at what does that look like, what's going on with the angles, and what's going on in the chart in general, just for the Washington state, or in the Washington, D.C. area, because it's kind of represents what goes on in the whole country. What I found interesting immediately was the nodes being on the axis of the 10th and the 4th. So I thought that was very interesting, and a strong connection in the Jupiter to Scorpio ingress chart with the moon in Gemini opposite Saturn. So these themes kind of, or these planets in these signs and where they're positioned in opposition, on the angles and so forth, kind of give me kind of a sense of what might be up for the time that the Jupiter's in Scorpio, and it'll be interesting to see how that does play out. In this instance, Jupiter is in the 12th house, so it makes me ponder the possibilities of a lot going on with behind the scenes, FBI, maybe CIA, whatever, investigations and stuff that we're not privy to per se in the public. But again, the moon is in the 8th house, so there's kind of this interesting symbol connection to Jupiter in Scorpio, and then Mars in Virgo and Venus in Virgo in the 11th. So It'll be quite an interesting year for the intensity of and the secrecy or the taboo subjects and all of this. But it's in the 12th house from the national perspective for the United States, so kind of makes you wonder what's going to be going on there. Pluto is in the 2nd house in Capricorn and is the ruler of that as well. So there's something about our values, but also with the Jupiter in the 12th house, I wonder how, and it's also, Scorpio is the rising sign for the ingress chart. And so there's a lot of Plutonian transformational energy right available for this ingress. And, you know, I have another slide for themes and so forth. So it kind of makes you wonder what will be behind the scenes, what may be in the collective, because the 12th house is very much the collective, but it's also kind of the collective that's not conscious. And we also have Uranus moving from Aries coming into Taurus next year as well. And so that will be in an interesting play between those planets again as well. And how we live with that energy. Also interesting because Mars is a traditional ruler of Scorpio. I want to point out that Mars is pretty important here in Virgo, but opposite Chiron. So that to me is kind of the stimulation of the the wounded healer going on in our ego part of ourselves, the creative part of ourselves and expression. So I wanted to share this chart. It's a very interesting chart. I think we'll find a lot that we could explore with this ingress chart. I know I've heard other astrologers use the Aries ingress chart, and it kind of gives you a lot of information for that period. So for the sun ingress into Aries is an interesting chart. But anyway, I wanted to share that. If you have your own country, I encourage you to explore that as well. There you are. This is in Seattle. I just wanted to see how it changed rising signs and what shifted and where Jupiter was from the West Coast perspective, Pacific time. You can see now that Jupiter jumps up into the 11th house, which is in the traditional thought of astrology, that is it's joy, the 11th house. So it'll be interesting to kind of weigh the differences across this. I want to observe this. I want to be an observer of, does the ingress chart when Jupiter moves into a sign give me a lot for what happens over the course of the year and how that plays out and how that chart unfolds within that year. So I thought that was interesting to take a look, and that Jupiter also is the ruler of the ascending, the rising sign for the ingress chart for Seattle. So kind of interesting. Anyway, you can have fun with your own city. Here are the key transits I've got two slides here. First, I wanted to take a look at kind of both inner and outer planets. I bolded the outer planets or the nodes so you could quickly refer to them. The biggest one's happening for Jupiter in 2017-18 from the outer planet perspective is when Jupiter trines Neptune. So you can see that happens, the first one happens in December, and that's December 2nd at 11 degrees of Scorpio and 30 minutes Scorpio and Pisces. So they're trining each other. So there's going to be this huge amount of expansive energy around the themes of water themes. So with Neptune in Pisces, there's an expansion of the consciousness available to us, what's available to us in the bigger scheme of things. And with Jupiter in Scorpio, it's kind of like the as above, so below, and what's in the below and what's above kind of opening up. So it's a beautiful signature, I think, or a transit to do some inner work and connect with your higher self, or that work that we do to understand ourselves in the bigger cosmic sense. and our participation in that, and what our higher self offers us for our path. So I think this is really huge. And when I think about Chiron as well, and how it was sitting in that chart, kind of the process of the healing, and what we as healers and astrologers do with our clients, and what we offer to help in that path. I think this is really important to understand these beneficial transits to work with, because we like to, I think it's important to align with the energy that's available to us for, you know, the effort and the work that we do. We also have Jupiter sextile Pluto. So Jupiter going into Scorpio will give us a sextile just by sign, from Scorpio to Capricorn. So there'll be this, you know, kind of excitation just by the sign value, just Scorpio and Pluto, Capricorn. So there's some beneficial transformational energy available within that. I know that we've experienced Jupiter square Pluto with it being in Libra, and now it will shift, and there'll be some movement to offer us with the sextile energy transit. So you can see that is January and April, and there's probably on my next slide as well. But before I switch to the next slide, I wanted to mention that Jupiter will square the nodes on Christmas Day, so that will be an interesting holiday with a lot of intensity into the fixed degree, which is at 16 degrees. And for those enthusiasts who follow the Sabian symbols, I would look up 16 degrees of each of those fixed signs. It may offer some insights, and especially if those are degree points in your chart or within a few degrees of orb, because of the significance of having gone through the total solar eclipse within the Leo Aquarius nodes. Okay, so that is for the transits up through about April. And if you want to explore these with your own chart and how they are flowing through your own chart, I think it is a great thing to look at. Let's see, it's not moving. Hold on. Okay, there we are. Sorry, I had to break out of it. It didn't go further. There we go. Sorry about that. So continuing on, you can see Jupiter trines Neptune again on May 25th. Very good to look at that. It's around 16 degrees, 20 minutes. I think that's when it's retrograde. And Neptune is in Pisces. And I listed all these in Pacific time, so you'd have to convert the time for your own time zone. And then again, Jupiter sextile Pluto, September of 2018 on the 12th at 18 degrees Virgo and Capricorn. Excuse me, that should be Scorpio. I've mistyped there. Jupiter would be in Scorpio. And but the minutes are correct and the degrees are correct. So, and then Jupiter trines the nodes at the very end before it goes into Sagittarius. So, and there, you can see everything. Okay. I don't know if there's any questions on that, but just going on, so just you can figure out some of those dates for yourself, and while you record that, you can just stop the recording when you want to explore these dates. Okay, here we go. On to the next one. I'm having difficulty with it moving forward, so I'm going to have to go out of this again. Okay, the retrograde period is March 8th. It stations to go March 8th of 2018. It will station to go retrograde, and it'll be retrograde until July 10th of 2018, just so you have those. It goes direct on July 10th. There we go. So just a few thoughts from other astrologers regarding Jupiter in Scorpio. One of them is Stephen Arroyo. I always say his last name wrong. But he has a book on Jupiter, and that got a few pages chapter on the Jupiter and the water signs, and what he offers on Jupiter and Scorpio is those with Jupiter and Scorpio in their nativity may feel the need to be possessed by a cause, a great, excuse me, hold on 1 second. A greater power, another person, or a sense of mission. And that's in his book. And I think it has great, a few pages on Jupiter and Scorpio if you want to explore that. Also out on the internet, I found a few blogs that have written up on Jupiter and Scorpio. I just wanted to kind of share some of their astrologer thoughts on this as well. One of them is from Lynn Hayes at Astrological Musings. And she says, Jupiter in Scorpio is not all death and destruction. It also opens our minds, Jupiter, to issues of sexuality, Scorpio, and opens up Jupiter trade and economic systems, Scorpio. For better or for worse, the processes that take place during Jupiter's travels through Scorpio create permanent transformation. I thought that was a really good one because of so much change going on, especially in the United States right now, how business and economics and laws that things are going to start taking a more fixed state as we go into Jupiter and Scorpio for those kinds of things. So I thought that would be good to share. Also, Jen Montgomery over at her blog is Born Under a Blonde Sign. She quoted, Scorpio in general has a lot of creativity, and Jupiter's influence here indicates the native can find ample success in creative endeavors, interior decorating, the entertainment industry, writing, sculpting, architecture, and the possibilities are limitless. What I liked about that one is I was thinking about how the total solar eclipse in August 21st and how that was in the Leo energy, and how that is really amplifying the energy around our creativity and our self-expression and the ego. And how are we going to be working with that as Jupiter goes into Scorpio? What kind of focus endeavors are we putting our creative juices towards, and what we offer the world, what we birth into the world, either children or projects or whatever. So I thought that was good as well. And then on astrophilosophy.org, they have Jupiter and Scorpio natives at their best want everyone to confront their own darkness and to expose any harmful secrets. They understand that monsters are only scary when you are too afraid to confront them, when you let them run amok by pretending they don't exist. When they have not evolved, it is easy for them to get lost in their own darkness and never face the light of day, live a destructive, depraved, perverse existence. But when these natives are on a steady path to righteousness, there is no stopping these fearless truth warriors. And I like that one because we have a lot running amok right now. And I think the more people become conscious of the shadows that are the shadows within that come from our unconscious, and then we play out in projection, and it's our job to work on that and heal that. And one by one individual work, the work that we do does matter and helps others immensely in this. And so this work, I think a lot of us as being astrologers, we're working on ourselves to be better people, but we're seeing clients. We're also trying to help our clients see the patterns that, hold them back from growth and healing things that have been there, that get in the way for their continued expression in expanding their life and their viability in the world. So I think that was really good. Anyway, awesome. Jupiter and Scorpio. Okay, this doesn't like to go. Sorry, I have to do this again. Here are a few famous folks who have Jupiter Scorpio combinations as in their nativity. So these will be interesting people to follow and kind of see what's going on with them in their public life. We have that visibility with people in the public life, especially our First Lady in America. So we can kind of watch how does Jupiter in Scorpio and where it sits in her chart. I don't know if we have a time for her, but it'll be interesting to see how that Jupiter influence does happen over the next year. And many of these people and how it influenced their lives. Some of these people have been have passed on, and definitely have that Jupiter Scorpio combination in their life story. So I think these are some folks that you can research and do a little digging if you want to learn a little bit more about that combination of Jupiter and Scorpio. But today we're going to look at Carly. Are you there, Carly?
I am.
Yay. So here's Carly's chart, and her Jupiter is in the 6th house. So we also have it conjunct Mars, which is interesting, and that is right on top, right conjunct, almost exact within a minute. I'd be interested to learn about the past two, probably because going further, I don't think there goes back to your birth then, would be exploring kind of what were the years that Jupiter was in Scorpio for you last time. I think that would be October of 05 to November of 06, I believe.
Yeah, like I said, it's a little bit of a blurry time for me, and I was trying to think back. But I did start to overcome an illness that had overpowered me. It's interesting, one of the quotes you read earlier about facing, our darkest secrets, and that's what I began to do around that time. And I started to take control of my mind and sort of heal myself. And I also started acting lessons and singing again. And I mentioned to you in the second transit after I was born, when I was 11, that's when I first started acting. So at the second transit, that's when I got back into it. Of course, I had no idea any of this was going on.
Right, before the astrology came in, you just...
Yeah.
So, which is interesting because you have one that you weren't well, so you kind of dealing with health, which is 6th house, but also working and acting, that's kind of work. So that was kind of going to work to do it, right? You had peers and relationships for the acting, but also that's a creative endeavor, and I see the Scorpio kind of coming out with that. Yeah?
Yeah, look, thinking about it now and seeing, the 6th house correlation, it's actually the acting that helped me get better in correlation with facing what was going on and actually confronting it.
Oh.
It was that work, that acting work, and the singing. I was, very busy. I would have, sort of 2 lessons a week and 3 singing lessons, and
right.
I was working in the industry, little bits and pieces. But
right.
It was in combination with facing what was going on that helped me to move beyond and really change my life.
Right. And what's interesting is with the Jupiter in Scorpio, it's the ruler of Sagittarius, which is the next house, right? The next sign in the mix. And that's an angle house for you. So it does have a big impact on you because your Sagittarius, that ruler of that Jupiter is, right there. So to me, that would be your relationships, and some of those relationships would be work related as well.
Sure, yeah, and I did create some wonderful relationships. Like at that time, my singing teacher, he's still a friend now, and an amazing mentor, an amazing person, and really helped me see life in a different way and really make health a focus and just showed me a different way of living. So that relationship really was integral.
Kind of like a guru or maybe a mentor.
Absolutely. Yep.
Which is sixth house as well. Mentor, guru.
Yep.
Yeah. Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
Anything else? I don't know if you had anything else to offer, but just wanted to check.
Nothing's coming up at the moment, Sarah.
Okay. No problem.
Whoa.
Now, I had Star, but she's not feeling well today, so we're going to bypass her. And I see a chat. Is there something I should check in the chat? I don't know.
Sarah,
direction.
Sarah,
Yeah.
we have another volunteer with Jupiter in Scorpio. Would you like to look at her chart?
Yes.
All right. Just give me a few minutes and I'll go and put it together.
Okay.
Okay.
In the meantime, I'll talk about mine and then we'll go to the other person. Okay?
Yeah, good.
All right. Okay. Sorry. I'm hitting the down arrow and it's not working. Oh, there it goes. That's Stars. This is mine. So my Jupiter in Scorpio is in the 7th house, as you can see. And so very much part of my relationships. When I first started in astrology, it was like I got more insight into the whole mix of myself in relationships and why my soul is absolutely working with this to grow. So, and it's opposite my moon and Saturn and dark moon Lilith in Taurus. And so my role as mother in my later part of my adult life definitely is just like this always balancing between my relationships and my role as a mother, and that kind of the work and responsibility, that Saturn part of my archetype of the mother, and how I balance between relationship and that. It's always this kind of interesting dynamic where even my significant other tells me that I wear these masks and he sees my shift between his time and how I show up as a mom and how I show up with work. So it's interesting because I don't see that myself. I just am, and but he sees that I kind of compartmentalize things. But with the Jupiter in Scorpio, going back to 2005, that would have been October of 2005, I think it went into Scorpio. And that is just a couple months after I got married the first time. So it was definitely tied into my relationship. And all that blooming and growing at that time, and shared resources was a big part of that, because we were both doing very well then, and shared houses and lots of houses and all of that. So it's interesting because of the Taurus Scorpio thing going on there. And going back further, I have to go back to the dates. Let me see. Hold on. I got my other slides here. The dates of the one prior to that. So the 2005, I was getting married. I had probably was earning the highest earning I've ever earned in the technical world. At that point in time, I became a VP within like 6 months. So resources and finance and that business thing definitely were part, for me, were very much part of that cycle. But what's interesting, as that year progressed from 2005 to 2006, I also got pregnant with my daughter. So growing, I literally was growing at the same time in 2006. And in 2006, I was building a house in secret. So there's the Scorpio in secret. I wasn't telling my employer about it because I was building it here in the Tri-Cities. So growing in both body and my house and my stuff. And so that was kind of interesting. What else was going on that year? Oh, I also went through legal action with an employer because of high risk pregnancy, and then they let me go in a kind of interesting little thing where they kind of put me in with project managers who were like on contract in the layoff kind of thing, which was kind of problematic for being pregnant. So I took him to court and we mediated, and I won a nice little chunk of money from that experience. I wouldn't recommend it. It's very stressful when you're pregnant. But interesting, but those were scorpionic themes, and at the time I had no idea about that. So that's very interesting to see that all play out in that year. The other years, if I go back to 1993 and to 94, I was still in college at that time. But I remember I had money challenges with financial aid, and I had to take some time off from college and then go back. And I think it's about that period that I'm kind of trying to get myself back into the college to finish off. And I think I changed my major at that time as well. So I had, changing relationships in 1993 and 94. 1981, going back another one, November 1981 to 1982, I was about 12 years old or something like that. 11, 12. And at that time, my parents were in a divorce, so that's a very Scorpio theme. And so there's a lot of change in my life at that time. And my parents were divorcing because of a love affair. So there's the whole sexuality and affair and kind of intimacy issues and things like that. So I'm getting that, in that age, and kind of learning about that before I eventually will discover those archetypes at that time and the expansion. So there's more to that, but I think they kind of fall into that theme. And before that, I was born. So I'm going into my, what is that, 1, 2, 3, 4, my fourth one. So from a Jupiter return perspective. So this will be interesting because I see repeating themes already. And but it is interesting to see how you expand and how you grow the energy. I also thought it was important to also look at where is Saturn the year that you're having a Jupiter return, because how they play together. It's very important to kind of see where is Saturn when the Jupiter is returning to your sign, and it kind of gives you some feel for that. Okay, I see someone coming in on the chat. Okay. Please stop share. Okay, I'm going to stop share so Linda can bring in the other one. Okay, here we go. Stop share. There we go. Okay, Linda, ready when you are. Is the name Summer Shine? Is that correct?
Yep, correct.
Okay, good. Is Summer Shine on with us? I think I saw her. See your Jupiter in Scorpio at 13?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So you have it also in the 8th house. So that's an interesting, you have quite a few planets in there. Do you mind sharing some of your experiences of your last Jupiter return to kind of get some insight to your experience around October 26, 2005 to November 23rd of 2006?
Yeah, so I was just thinking about that because that was my second one. I was in 5th grade. Mm-hmm. So a lot of things happened around my family life. I got my first dog. And it was actually, no, it wasn't my first dog. It was my second dog. My first dog had died 3 days after we got our second dog. So it was a very traumatic experience, like very, very traumatic. And I also was into sports. And so I was really heavily involved into that. My parents had been divorced for some time now, but the lingering of that was still very much present, and all of that dark stuff. And then, yeah, I mean, my social life as a kid was just really starting to develop because I was starting middle school that next year, and Scorpio, Jupiter still in Scorpio at that time. And so everything, my whole life changed at that time. So yeah, I mean, I was so young though, like. Yeah.
So a lot of the influence comes from your parents during your
heavily. My dad also has a Jupiter in Scorpio.
Your dad?
My dad, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Same as my daughter. She has it too.
Mhm.
Oh, that's interesting. So, so you're going into your second, this one, yeah?
Yeah, I will be. I'm
Yes.
really, really looking forward to it. I'm actually making a move, a big move, right? Like a week or two before it goes into Scorpio. I'm going to be moving to Hawaii.
Oh, that's a big transformation.
Yeah, very huge transformation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I turned 23 right before then, and so I know that this, you know, it's a fluctuating time period, but it's usually when you're 24, I thought, or around that age. So yeah, I'll be 23, and then 24 2 months after it leaves. So yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Depends where your birthday falls in that mix, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. A lot of psychological stuff, though, like a lot of like me dealing with my own stuff privately, but maybe the surface was talked about with my family. Like I had a very tight knit family, my dad and my stepmom. So we would talk about things that, you know, maybe other children weren't going through, you know, my age. So it was like a very interesting time, and, you know, just dealing with all of that. Very interesting. Yeah.
Now, with your move to Hawaii, I'm just curious. Is it a shared resource kind of thing with the partner? Because that's a 8th house kind of thing, and Scorpio.
No, I'm actually going there for work trade. So yeah, it is shared. Absolutely. I'm not going there on my own. I'm going there with a place that, shared.
Yeah.
Share.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So a lot of transformation going on for you.
Oh, that seems to be the theme of my life. And I also have it opposite my moon in a very loose orb, though, very, very loose. But that whole stellium is opposite, you know. That.
Yeah. What will be interesting is because your parents were kind of the kind of overarching how it played for you before. Now it's more independent for you because you're on your, you know, being an individual on your own kind of, and how that works for you. But what's interesting is to see how some of those maybe family themes can surface that you did experience before, but they'll just take on a different kind of frame, and you're expanding your own, you know, depth and entity, and your psychology work, or how you go in exploring that for yourself. And so yeah.
100%. Yeah. I mean, my whole relationship with my parents have totally transformed, and me seeing things from my own self rather than like the child that just is a sponge to its environment, you know, and just believing everything that they're told. And so now that I'm my own person, you know, our whole dynamic has transformed, and it's for the best. And like the psychology behind everything, that's like what runs me in this life. I see the psychology behind everything, by why people act the way they are, in myself as well. So I'm seeing myself through my parents, and seeing, you know, vice versa. And it's been a very humbling experience, and it's been very healing, because I know why I've been the way that I've been in that programming, you know what I mean? So it's ultimately about them. And I just because I experienced that, that's not me. And that's what I've been kind of like putting back, like giving them back themselves, if that makes any sense. It's like, you know, it's not about me, it's about you, you know? So.
Right. And how your programming, as they say, when you're a child, you get all this information, but you have to discern for it later in life, like, who am I, what am I, and you ask all those big questions, right? That's definitely a Scorpio kind of into that exploration. And what do I believe, really? And explore those. That's part of that, which is interesting, because you're definitely going to be stepping into big ones because of being on your own now, and being able to explore those dynamics from an individual sense. So.
My solar returns right before this too, so this is really great. Yeah.
Yeah. We only have a couple of examples here, but do we want to open it up? I would like to open it up for questions, if anybody has any questions or sharings that based on, you know, where Scorpio is in their chart and what's expanding for them as Jupiter goes into that house ruled by Scorpio. Love to open that up.
Sarah, I'd like to, if you have any thoughts on Jupiter going through Scorpio in the 7th house, conjuncting the South Node or any other house.
Jupiter going into the 7th house in Scorpio, conjuncting the South Node. Did I hear you right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I would imagine, where's the Mars? Or where's the Pluto? I'm sorry.
Pluto's 4th house, Leo.
Yeah, so I would think that it's going to be focused on relationships from the family or family heritage, or uncovering, more there. Does that make sense? Like, yeah, because the South Node, it's bringing up, absolutely will bring up things to address, or new information that you didn't know about, but and it will be uncovered, kind of thing. But of course, that depends on progressions and arcs and things like that, and what's triggering it. I mean, are you being hard triggered, or is it more, I'm learning new information and exploring that and what that means for you about your family heritage? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I have a skip step that is separating, and I really feel that I'm finally going, okay, just bring on the information. I just want to do this, and it's good.
Yeah.
Not always comfortable, but good. So it feels like it's progressed, the opening up and the uncovering of information, which really came just before the eclipse.
Yeah.
Is just, okay.
Yeah.
What's next?
Yeah. And significantly deep with Scorpio, but also the South Node and Mercury right there, what comes, right? Like, it could come just bubbling up. You could have images of past life stuff that are part of the family storyline, but also information. That's Mercury, right? And how deep it goes. So.
Yeah, that feels like what's happening.
Yeah. So, and with astrology as your tool, especially evolutionary astrology, you can get into more and explore more, the whys, the whats, the deep questions that we probe on ourselves for our deepest healing. And Chiron being there at the very end of it next year, you'll have maybe some ahas around that, and can find healing as it being connected. You've seen the connections. Yeah. So hopefully that answers the sharing.
It does. Thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else?
I have a similar setup to Carolyn's. It's going through the 3rd house. And it's also across the South Node later on in the very 3rd decan. And I'm thinking that for me, it's going to be maybe an expansion of as far as maybe the family life, in regards to when Saturn came through there, because Saturn shook up a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
When it hit that Neptune South Node. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
Continuation of that story.
Are you have siblings?
No, I'm an only child.
Okay. So yeah, as you dive in deep there, but it's kind of like the communication, but also the family. But your Jupiter sits up in your 10th, right. And whenever something's transiting somewhere else, it always brings there's a connection to where it sits natally. So it'll address kind of that part of yourself as well. Same for you, Carolyn, wherever I can't remember where your Jupiter was exactly, but even though it's transiting the 3rd house, it's stimulating your 10th because it sits there natally. So does that make sense what I'm saying? It's like
definitely
how Bernadette Brady does from her book Eagle and Lark. So
Right.
definitely the South Node, that's going to be next year, but offering the deeper perspective around information that you receive and your pursuit of natural, the natural laws and truth are all a part of that as well, because of your the Jupiter's involved, first of all, but also the family, how the home, the house of family and home and so forth is ruled by that, the Sagittarius there. So it kind of brings in all of those things.
Right. Plus, it's a
it may be very
repeating
public.
theme.
What?
Yeah, I thought about that too. Plus, it's a repeating theme because my natal Jupiter is actually in Gemini.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
maybe I'll finally be able to get the astrology software that I've been wanting for years.
There you go. Exactly. That's one way where it could play, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Growth in your software tools.
Yes.
For disseminating information.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it. 15 minutes left. Yes. Do we have anyone else?
I have something.
Sure.
So I've done it before, but I never looked at it quite this way. You check all of your returns for Jupiter, Saturn, what have you.
Mm-hmm.
So I ran my Jupiter returns, and I remember I've got a retrograde Jupiter. And of course, when it comes back through, that's a return in and of itself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm 6 months old, or just under 6 months old, but I ran the chart for it just now as we're learning about this.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I was 6 months, my mom was pregnant with my sister.
Wow.
But she was breastfeeding me, but the doctor, I was skinny, like something's wrong, skinny. And the doctor says, look, you got to stop breastfeeding because she needs more nutrition. You're giving everything to the baby and you're not giving anything to the baby that you have on the outside.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, so that's, okay, that happens. A lot of people have that happen. But in my chart, I have, my return chart of Jupiter, I have Jupiter in the 12th house. Mm-hmm. I have Sun conjunct Venus and the Moon. That's my sister coming. But Venus is conjunct Eris and Hygeia, and that's in the 11th house. My sister, my best friend ever.
Yeah.
And Hygeia is in the 1st house. So that's the asteroid of health. And I've got Neptune in the 6th house, which my health was dissolving.
Interesting.
All the power I would have been born with.
All in that chart. That's fascinating, right?
Yeah, what a way to look at it, huh?
Yeah.
I've looked at it before. I never saw that.
Yeah, that's why I think, I did the example around the United States, but you can do it for yourself. It's like when I run the chart, the exact moment and minute that Jupiter does return, where is it, in your natal chart, yeah, but what else is going on in that chart if you were just to take that chart, right, by the minute? And I think it has a lot to offer, and I'm very interested in observing that, and I love your example. Thank you for sharing that. From an early story. But it's fascinating what perspectives we can get on our journey of life, and what should I be spending my time on, or what would be a good alignment for where it's at right now, or what are the obstacles that I might want to check into. So anyway, does anyone else have a question? No. I think we are done.
I have a quick question, a quick thought that came across. You think overall, will there be maybe some more honesty or truths revealed in regards to shared resources?
I think that's a potential. But also because of the fixed energy, you have to work at make sure that the information is back and forth and it's shared. There can be a tendency for secrecy, and there can be a tendency to, I don't know, I don't know how to put it, but there can be a tendency for secrecy, and there can be a tendency to, I don't know how to put it, but there can be a tendency for secrecy, and there can be a tendency to, I don't know how to put it, but there can be a tendency to, I don't know how to put it, but there can be a tendency to, I don't know how to put it, but there can be a tendency to, I don't know how to put it, but there can be a tendency to, I don't know how to put it, but there can be a tendency to, I don't know how to put it, but there can be a tendency to, I don't know how to put it, but there can be a tendency to, I don't know how to put it, but there can be a tendency to, I don't know how to put it, but there can be a tendency to, I don't know how to put it, but there can be a tendency to, I don't know how to put it, but there can be a tendency to, I don't know how to put it, but there can be a tendency to, I don't know how to put it, but there can be a tendency to, I don't know how to put it, but there can be a tendency to, I don't know how to put it, but there can be a tendency to, I don't know how to put it, but there can be a tendency to, I don't know I don't think it would necessarily be in the shared resources conversation, but maybe in another one. Jealousy can happen. But I think you have to come to the table and make sure that you get as much information out for that to take place. That would be my, life 101 conversation around that, not necessarily astrology, but yeah. Does that make sense what I'm just saying?
Yeah. I was looking at it overall, share resources like, hey, just what's on the planet, water, or
Oh yeah, from that kind of resource, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I would say that we definitely are going to see. I mean, I'm just noticing it with the recent Harvey in Houston.
Yes, that's what I was thinking.
People out of the blue just, I'm taking a U-Haul down and I'm driving supplies, share your stuff. I mean, they're just popping up everywhere. It's like, well, do you have a Fund Me page, or how can I help? Where am I sending stuff? And so I think I love that, and I hope that's when we're with our hearts open. If our hearts are not open, it's the other way. So because you kind of think if that was me, wouldn't I want someone coming to help me? And I would say yes, I would. So I think we're going to see more of that, because it's not just Houston and Harvey, but we have it across everywhere. I mean, and it's where can we make the biggest impact quickly and be there for our neighbor. I think the potential, is there. I think we're already seeing it, but I think it can continue, and it won't be just localized. I think you'll see things, that we're helping further out, but I think definitely in the U.S., I'm noticing that, because it's almost like, forget the politics. We're just going to go do it, and we're going to go help out. And I love to see that. It gives me hope, and, my heart feels open and for the human spirit. So.
Yeah, expansion of expansion of the thought of who our neighbor is, and it's not just the neighbor that's right across the street from you or right next door to you.
Yeah.
Everybody's.
Yeah.
Regardless of where they're located.
I mean, I feel like I know people in Houston. I have employees there from my day job, and how they're impacted and what they're doing and how we're helping them out. And but I think I even see it in the astrology community groups, like people taking on certain initiatives that they're doing, and further out, other people are doing other things. And so it's like you just choose one or a couple and participate. I think we're going to see more of that. And I'm glad to see that we're seeing more of that. So thank you. That's a good one. Because sometimes it's water and sometimes it's fire. We have had a lot of fires in this area, so. Yeah. Anyone else? These are all great.
I'll go. My Jupiter is going to go over my Mars in Scorpio in my 5th house. And it's where I recently had a progressed new moon conjunct Venus. And also, so my Pluto is in Leo, square that, and there's an eclipse on that point, exactly on that point, a year from now. Oh. So the main thing that's going on is that my artwork is expanding,
right?
And reaching people, which I just love.
I would say that is absolutely going to be even more with Jupiter coming in and coming over the Mars, and where the progressed new moon was with Venus. Progressed, yeah?
Yeah.
There's a lot going, yeah, absolutely. That will be very interesting to watch, right? That's Jupiter touching it. So, and I've seen your artwork. It's amazing. So. Yeah.
Well, and I think it kind of calls back to the Pluto, which is my, my self-actualization, coming through my artwork.
Yeah. And what's interesting is Pluto in the second house is something that you value, but also you could earn income from it.
That from your lips to God's ears, that would be awesome.
You never know who comes calling, you know? You have a little showing of your pieces somewhere, you never know.
Yep.
Putting it out in the world. Well, that's great.
Thanks.
Yeah. Anything else, anyone? I think we're done. I think that's it. Linda?
Okay, Sarah, thank you very much for a great presentation on Jupiter in Scorpio. And just unmuting everybody now to say thank you. See you next time.
Sarah. Brilliant. Thanks, Sarah.
Sarah, that was really informative.
Thanks.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thanks, Sarah.
See ya.